2023 Ford Maverick Order Banks. That's what we're here to talk to you about today. And I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews with currently the most annoying voice, well, probably in all of YouTube. And that's because yet again, I tested positive like I did about 6 months ago. So I'm at home. I normally don't bring out videos in the middle of the day. I keep them at night. However, this is must-know information. It's going to be pretty disappointing to some of you, but let me get through all that because in a way, this is actually going to be very good news for some. I'm convinced of that. Some frustrating news for others. But while we're on the topic of frustrating news, do watch to the end because we are going to be doing a little section on what is Ford doing about that. So we're just going to be covering a few things in that regards because people in a lot of the comments have been saying like, they're really frustrated with Ford, that it's completely unacceptable in regards to, long delay times for vehicles. So I just want to talk about what is actually being done in those regards on Ford's behalf to sort of really resolve the problems that we're all facing right now. So let's just put the pedal to the metal, just jump right in. Please, I hope you're willing to bear with my voice this week, and I do want to get this very pertinent news to you, even though my voice does hurt quite a bit. And that's because this is useful, pertinent news. And hey, I just came out, my last video was basically, a whole video on the 10 steps you need to take to not get robbed in the whole purchasing process. And that's not just for Ford, that's for any manufacturer. And as such, I can't do this important update. So right to it. The 2023 Ford Maverick Order Banks, that just means when you can order, when the factory is officially, opening their doors and taking all those orders. That is now going to be in September. There's some speculation, there's some talk that the date's going to be September 15th, but I still don't feel that that's completely official. That is the date that Ford Authority is giving, but I'd like to see it written on paper first. Right now, what I do have is September, and this is important to know. And if you do already have an order in beyond the sold out dates, so let's go way back in time. The Ford Maverick Hybrid sold out, I believe it was the 15th or 17th of November, 2021. That's for the hybrid. The EcoBoost sold out January 27th in the States and shortly after in Canada. And I say shortly after because there will be some produced on the Canadian side that were actually ordered after the 27th of January if it's a simple build. I have videos talking about what's a simple build and what gets built faster, so I'm not getting into all that right now. I want to focus on the topic for once, not just cover a whole lot of stuff, but let's focus in here. We've got this Maverick and it's unbelievably popular, and this is why it sold out so early for a 2022 order. Now you might have gone to a dealer and you might have given a deposit, hopefully driver's license, signed an offer sheet, and sign your build. Now, hopefully that dealership sent that all over to Ford through the COVP process, that's customer order verification process that has just started in Canada, but has been going on in the States for a year now. That's one of the things Ford is doing to try to avoid a lot of the problems we've been having, such as, dealers making fake orders and having in a fake customer or a cousin's name and then exploding the price with this adjusted markup on, making fake inventory. Ford does want to get us our Mavericks. And this is where the good news comes in. Originally, they're talking about an estimated date of order banks, maybe order, and I remember this from 2021, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was either June or July. I think it was like maybe June for getting our guides, our order guides, and then July for orders. But then it was really official. The date was August 15th. And then, of course, I do keep you updated no matter what the circumstances. Even if I've lost my voice, if I can still talk, I will update you. I did update the community saying it would be August 2nd. And that's what my whole video was about. Get to your dealership, on August 2nd if they're not taking any what you could call pre-orders. Because there's two different things, two businesses. The dealership's a business And Ford is a business, and the Ford factory can open its doors and start taking in orders, but dealerships can also choose to take pre-orders and, put them in priority. Some dealers have even gone as far as asking for money to have people advance in priority, and that's why Ford has also done something about that. That's pretty interesting, and I'll talk to you about that at the end of the video. Really cool section at the end. So why is this good? This is good because now the date's going to be in September, meaning that thankfully there's no confusion for people that were wondering, do I need to put in a second order? Will I get my 2022 built? Or do I need to go take the time, maybe an hour of, working with the dealer and transport, waiting there, basically potentially waste your time putting in a 2023 order and then having your 2022 Maverick selected, given a VIN, a vehicle identification number, and also given a build date and get built as a 2022. So this is gonna save us time. So I know some people are frustrated. I've read the comments, but this is not a frustrating point. This also, whether Ford needs the extra time or not, this definitely does give them the extra time to get an order guide out. So I am really hoping that dealers will have an order guide out of it, and they seem to get leaked pretty often on the internet so that y'all can check them. But either way, no matter what, I can guarantee you I will have access to one, and I will verbally go through the order guide, what the changes are, the don't be fooled sections, what's standard, even though it may appear that you need a higher trim model. So I've done videos on that before where I get a couple 100,000 views, 150 and about 250 on another, because I do really like to have an effective don't be fooled section. So I will be covering what's base, and well, I really do hope Ford gets these order guides out to the dealers prior, so that channels like mine and Tim Bart's from Long MacArthur, we can go through and really tell you what the changes are. I'm going to make sure that I have a don't be fooled section and also a bit of a BS busters. For example, in my previous videos, I really pointed out that if you want heated seats, you do have to get the Lux package, even if you're on a Lariat, which seems wild, and that's very much unlike the F-150 that's been around and you've probably shopped for before. But I also mentioned that you can get them aftermarket built underneath the seat for 300 to 350 Canadian per seat. So I will have little tips and tricks in that. But first thing, let's really do hope that these order guides come out a week or ideally 2 weeks at least prior to when those order banks. It's going to allow Marie and I, that's M-A-R-I-E for those that are wondering. So it's Marie-Pierre is actually her full first name. She has a conjoined name like myself, which you can find us now on Facebook. We have Johnny's Car Care and Reviews as a little Facebook page, and we'll all be shooting a lot of sending a lot of photos on that, a little bit of short stories. But we're a conversion, and I want to make something very clear. I hope you've made it this far, because I have read comments of people saying, oh, this is great news. All the 2022 orders are going to get built. All the 2022 orders are definitely not going to get built as 2022s. Just because they've pushed back when they're accepting those orders doesn't really change anything for production, other than letting people who are in limbo wondering if they'll get a 2022. It gives it, the next few weeks, really, the next 2 to 3 weeks, to really know if you're going to be converted or not. It also gives Ford a chance to get those offers out, because there unfortunately have been dealerships where you wait for your Maverick, you wait for your Bronco, and I did say this from the very beginning. The videos where I would do price protection for the Maverick at first last summer were not popular, and that advice was based on what I had seen with the Bronco, and I did push saying, whether you're buying a Bronco, an F-150, a Ranger, a Porsche, a Corvette, no matter what you're buying, you need to get things in writing. So I did that for the Maverick, and I just recently redid it for the Maverick to prepare everyone for this whole ordering bank, either reordering because you ordered a 2022 and it gets converted as a 2023, or just ordering for the first time. And no matter what the manufacturer is, markups are happening everywhere. So in the comment section, I read a lot of, just focusing only in on Ford, saying, really almost hatred. This isn't a Ford only issue. This is just an open market issue. You can't really be mad at capitalism. It's worked for us pretty well. Now, let's just carry on. The reason the order bank's being pushed back does not mean that everyone who's ordered 2022 within the time limits of November 15th, 2021 for a hybrid, January 27th, 2022 for an EcoBoost, just because you made it before the sold out dates doesn't mean you're getting 2022. Because so far, the factory is only going to continue to start making 2023 Mavericks the 24th of October. So if you don't push back the date, you're not really getting any more built. You are getting rid of all the people in limbo wondering if they really do have to order up a 2023. And yes, again, hopefully we get those order banks, and hopefully maybe someone from Ford is listening and saying, hey, yeah, let's get these order guides out. I can hope. Now, if you're wondering where you stand, what are your chances of being built as a 2022? Well, I can tell you, Marie and I are July 17th. The order got confirmed and accepted by Ford July 30th. So I think we have to kind of go with July 30th as our real date. But we're a hybrid XLT with luxury package that we kept on the plastic bedliner luxury package for far too long. It was only beginning of June that we switched it over to, from spray and bedliner. We then switched it over to the plastic relatively late, early June. We're going to be almost certainly a conversion unless Ford would push back the actual production date. The factory starting to build 2023s, October 24th. If that got pushed back by a month, well then yes, we would have chances of getting built. Now, simpler hybrids, I have seen simpler hybrids from November getting built, and I've got all sorts of dates for that, so I will have a separate standalone video, because I do like to try to do 10-minute videos or less, especially when I have a lot of cutscenes, because I'm drinking a little bit of solution to help my throat out here. But if they don't move that October 24th date, everything I've said in the past is gonna continue to be the case. If you have a complex build, and even if you're 2 months before the cutoff and you're a luxury package, you're probably getting pushed. So now that we've got that out of the way, what is Ford doing to help us out? And I've got to cover this because there is so much frustration towards Ford in even the JCCR community's comment section, worse at other channels where the news isn't necessarily presented in a manner of like, here are some facts, and here's how we can interpret them, good and bad, but relatively negative channels, and negative journalism, but the comments are even relatively negative in our community. So I just want to cover what Ford is doing. First of all, I mentioned earlier in the video that there are some dealers that, were asking clients publicly, advertising that, if you wanted a Lightning and you wanted it faster, you had to pay more. Now, that's pretty cool. Not that they're doing it, that's pretty horrible. And do remember, dealerships are separate businesses. It's not as if Ford owns all the dealerships. They absolutely do not. But what Ford is doing about that is that dealers can no longer play around with the status, the priority of the Bronco, Explorer, F-150, F-150 Lightning, the Mach E, as well as the Maverick. So as much as a dealer could want to mess around, they can't. So Ford resolved that. They saw a problem and they went in and they resolved it. What else have they resolved? Well, there's a lot of delays on the Bronco in regards to wild track, and they definitely have worked hard to pump up those numbers. Now, recently, back in June, they had gotten them up to 23%. I have seen them as low, if I recall, either 15 or 17%. Demand for the wild track Bronco has been very high. and they're doing their best. And you can see they're doing their best because at first, and I mean at first it was actually, I believe, below 15%, but then it stayed around 15 to 17% for quite a while. June went up to 23% and just recently has gone back down to 21%. So you really see that they are trying to put all their effort into getting things built according to what's already in the system. They're not just ignoring the problem and continuing with their original, wild track package percentage division of, let's say, 14 or 15%. Also, the locking front axle, originally the percentage for that was very low. And what I mean by percentage is, of all the Broncos built, originally a small percentage could be locking front axle, and now that's gone up to 73%. And actually those are June's numbers. I do have the numbers for the end of July, and the numbers for the end of July are 68%, 5% down. But that just shows that they put in all the effort to get all the way up to 73%, and unfortunately supplies and constraints, as much as they want to build a higher percentage at the highest percentage as possible, that percentage has gone down. And it does show us that locking front differential, not available on the Black Diamond, but available on not available, mandatory, standard on the Badlands, standard on the Wild Track, and also mandatory, or you could say standard, with every single Sasquatch package. People have been jumping on the Sasquatch build, so they worked very hard to get those numbers up, and when they go down a little bit, it's just a matter of suppliers not getting what they need so that they can build vehicles with that locking front diff. Now, before we talk about EV, because part of this whole, what is Ford doing, we're going to do a little EV section, which I find very interesting. We're not a whole lot in the community here that are loving the EVs, but I am loving and also hating. There's parts of the whole EV technology that really bother me. But let's just finish up on the Bronco. Ford actually, to resolve part of the Bronco issue, modular front bumper, a ton of people had those on their list, and then Ford was like, take it off. And then a ton of people still had it. Most people did not remove the modular front bumper. So what did Ford do? Clearly, they did everything they could to get their supplier to produce and bring to them more modular front bumpers, because the percentage is up to 38%. And, if there could be a lot of frustration for some people, but you do have to remember that when you're a manufacturer and you're bringing out a new product, you don't have any history to say, hey, people are really going to want a Bronco with a steel front bumper, a full steel front bumper. And you don't have the history to tell you, hey, people are really going to want a front locker. It's not as if on the F-150 the Tremor has a front locker, and it's not as if all of a sudden 60-70% of F-150 orders were for Tremors because everyone wants a front locker. But on the Bronco, well, everyone wants a front locker, and they gave it to us. They worked it out. Everyone seems to want a steel front bumper, and the numbers have really gone up. Towing capacity has also gone up. This is fantastic. It's now at 51%. The only thing is, if I had to shoot a dart in the dark, I'd say that a good amount over 51% of orders want the hitch. But now they can build 51%, which is a huge increase. Previously, it had been much lower. In June, it was at 41%, and if I recall, earlier months, I think I may have seen it as low as 20%. And once again, when you're a manufacturer and you're going to be bringing out a new product, you might not realize that so many people are going to want to hitch on what isn't a towing vehicle. The thing tows 3,500 pounds. It's not a vehicle that people, you would think, buy to tow, but I think it's out of necessity. Maybe some people are saying, hey, you know what, I won't have my F-150 anymore, but I will need to tow once in a while with my Bronco. Hence, all the people asking for a hitch. And actually, the Bronco, the Mach E, the Maverick, these are all models that Ford is actually, most of the sales, the majority of the sales, anywhere from 60 to 70%, depending on the model, it's actually people coming from other brands. And well, when you have people coming from other brands, it's even harder to judge what they're going to want in advance. Okay, we all know there are delays at Ford, and there's wild delays everywhere on the market for anything that is hybrid or all electric. I've mentioned in videos before, Kia and Hyundai, you're looking at 1.5 to 3 years if you want something hybrid or electric. Toyota, you're looking at 1.5 years to 5 years depending on the model. The Corvette, 2 to 3 years depending on the dealership. Porsche 911, 2 to 3 years depending on the dealership. And I could continue and go on, but just trust me, there's a lot of delays at a lot of places. Now, certain manufacturers have gotten a decrease in demand, and they also had a decrease in capacity to build. So their build numbers have gone down, but their demand has also gone down. So let's say you build 20 or 30% less, but your demand goes down by 20 or 30% less. Well, you're gonna have inventory like you had back in 2019. You're gonna have, Dodge Rams sitting around. You're gonna have Jeep Wranglers sitting around. There's been a lot of people who would have bought a Jeep Wrangler who then are waiting for a Bronco, some of which get tired and end up going back and getting the Jeep Wrangler. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I do find that the front suspension on the Bronco, being that it's independent, makes for a much, much, much better daily driver. Now, Ford is also working to solve the EV issue. The EV issue is that there's a lot of demand for, the Lightning. The demand is insane. For the Mach E, the demand is extremely, extremely high. And it's not because, unlike the RAV4 Prime, it's not because they're a manufacturer that's just building very few of them. Ford's goal was 200,000 units of the Mach E for 2023. And just recently, they announced that they want to get it up to 200. They're going to, do everything in their power to get that up to 270,000 units. They've also mentioned that by 2026, they've got two goals. Their short-term goal, I believe it's end of 2023, there's this goal to have 600,000 either electric or hybrid vehicles, so you could call them EVs nonetheless, but produced. And by 2026, if I'm not mistaken, it's 2 million. So Ford is really working to get this up. I've done a whole video on this. There's going to be sort of like a Ford City, 6 square miles, 11,000 jobs. They're building new factories and really a site with many factories. Battery recycling, battery production, vehicle manufacturing. So Ford is highly invested in these EVs. Should be my prediction is 5 new electric models coming out of the Ontario plant. So Ford is really working hard to ramp up production. But they also need the governments to follow. So here is some more interesting news. Ford has been working hard to get the government to change its laws, because in the United States, there's a $7,500 rebate for getting an electric vehicle if it fits within certain parameters. The problem is there was also rules, 200 or 220,000 units sold by a manufacturer and then no more rebates. So let's say the manufacturer Ford sells, 250,000 units electric vehicles, then you don't get an incentive. And as a buyer, well, maybe you won't consider an electric vehicle if it doesn't have an incentive. So then what do? You look at a new manufacturer that does have an electric vehicle, and it's untested, it's brand new, it doesn't have a long history of assembling vehicles, so you don't know what you're getting. So then maybe you say, well, I don't really trust going with this new manufacturer, and who knows, maybe it would have been electric vehicles coming in from China who would have maybe gotten these incentives, which for me, I think that if it's tax dollars going out to people as incentives, I would think there should be some sort of, maybe made in the US or made within the North American Trade Agreement. So the 3 countries, Canada, the US, and Mexico, work together to be globally competitive in regards to manufacturing, so that we can have good, high-paying jobs in the manufacturing industry. And also so that we can sell these things overseas and have money that is floating at other ends of the globe come into our system and have that money, elevate our wealth level. So Ford is working on that, because Ford, as well as others, GM, Tesla as well, they were lobbying and really encouraging the US government to have that go away, the total units sold go away, so that everyone's on an equal playing field. And really, as a buyer, I would also be the type that would be doubtful and unsure about buying from a completely brand new manufacturer, or a manufacturer from China bringing vehicles over here. A lot of data that these vehicles collect. And I probably wouldn't be getting an electric vehicle. By the way, I'm getting an F-150 Lightning, and I'd love to hear in your comments whether you think I should get a Platinum or just an XLT, because oddly, I'm gonna own it for 1 to 2 years. I don't see the resale being all that different. So I'd love to hear. I think the XLT is a real steal of a deal, but the Platinum is an eye catcher. So please share your opinions on this. So Ford and the others have done a good job, because now there's a good chance this comes to law, that the $7,500 incentive will just continue to apply across the board. Now, there are going to be constraints. So if you're looking at a vehicle, the vehicle has to be under a certain price, $55,000, and if it's an SUV or a truck, it needs to be, from recollection, under $80,000. Let's hope we're far away from $800,000 vehicles. Now I'll get to those specific numbers in regards to the rebate in just a moment, but I do want to mention that Ford is working very hard at ramping up production. So for the Mach E, they'll be working to ramp up to 4,000 units per week. Their goal is to eventually get it up to 600,000, so I certainly do hope that they sell that many Mach E's. But here's the thing, if you've been following the channel now from the very beginning, you know I have a bit of an issue with lithium ion batteries, because, you know, the lead that's inside of them and lithium, it's a good amount of pollution creating lithium batteries. And Ford, I mentioned this all the way last summer, I said they're working, I believe I said iron batteries. There's also graphene manufacturing, which is not related to Ford, but they're working with graphene aluminum ion batteries. So that should be graphene layered batteries. That should be very interesting if that comes to fruition, because I've mentioned it before. It has the potential to provide 3 times the autonomy for the same size battery, and also charge 60 times faster. So I'm hoping that happens. But right now, what is confirmed, and I mentioned it just recently, is that Ford is going to be introducing lithium iron phosphate batteries to the Mach E. Almost certainly that'll become the new standard range battery. And the F-150 Lightning, also probably for the standard range battery, it's going to be lithium iron phosphate batteries. So a little better for the environment. They won't use nickel and they won't use cobalt. And let's hope as things move forward, we do eventually get aluminum ion batteries. We'll see. I'll be keeping you all updated, and of course I'll bring out the news no matter what how I'm feeling, if it's pressing news. So this new tax bill, if it goes through, I believe that it should be going through to be voted on next week, but it's the $7,500 tax credit. But there's also $10 billion set aside for clean technology manufacturing facilities, a $4,000 tax credit for if you get a used EV, because, well, we got to encourage the used market too, because people who like to buy new might not consider a used vehicle if the depreciation is too much on the vehicle, because of course when you're purchasing a vehicle you should consider how much am I paying for it, and if you do like changing every year or 6 months like I do, you definitely need to be thinking about what your sale price is going to be, because that's your real cost of ownership. How much are you buying it at and how much are you selling it for? If it's $10,000 under, well, the year of use cost $10,000. If it's these days $10,000 over, well, then you got paid $10,000 to drive the vehicle. That's the crazy world we're living in now, and that will not stay forever, because I will say that the used market, the bubble is, I wouldn't say the bubble has burst. I'd say, well, like my pool floater, before I came in to do this news, because I felt this news really does need to come out. I was floating around in the pool with my cell phone and it has a leak in it. And well, anyways, if I would have spent another 5 minutes, I would have been no longer floating in the pool. But that's what the used market is right now. It's like that inflatable for the pool. It's on a slow leak. It did take, the puncture has been made. Some initial air has come out. We're definitely seeing some drops. I can say seeing drops of about 10%, but do remember that the current market was ballooned by about, depending on the model, some models not much, but a lot of models 20 to 30%. So with 10% out, I think it's going to continue going down because interest rates are going up. So I have some data, I have some proof. Now I'm making speculation saying that we've lost 10%, but I think we will continue to lose another 10% as interest rates continue to go up. So over the next 6 months. Now, part of this tax credit, there's also $2 billion to retool existing plants for the production of EVs, $1 billion for schools and government entities to purchase heavy-duty vehicles, and $3 billion for USPS as it aims to convert to EVs as well. So there's a lot of money put aside to really, well, the bill is to give us a cleaner environment. And of course, where the electricity comes from is extremely important. So if you're in a coal burning state, that's not good. According to Engineering Explained, it'll take 17 years to sort of break even with a gasoline powered engine. And the problem with that is that 17 years, that's probably when you're really going to need to swap the battery for a whole new battery. And these days, creating a battery creates a good amount of pollution. So obviously, this is part of this bill. Obviously, this is needed. $30 billion in tax credits to accelerate U.S. manufacturing of solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, and critical minerals processing. If you want to get the full story on this, go to Ford Authority. They are the best written resource for Ford news, unbelievably accurate, 99.99% of the time. And that 0.001 I try to pick up, like when they put a picture of a Mach E towing a boat. You can't do that in Canada and the US. So don't pull anything with your Mach E. For your warranty's sake, you can have bikes in the back. You can't be towing. So let's hope this goes through. Only cars priced under $55,000 apply. And for SUVs and trucks, as well as vans, you need to have a starting price under $80,000. Starting price means that's that base price before you add transport and before you add options, which in Canada, we're pretty close to on the Mach E. When you look at an all-wheel drive Mach E at $55,000, we're only $5,000 away from losing our 2 tax credits, which actually make for $12,000 if you're in the province of Quebec. But there's creative ways, and I have faith that if Ford does increase the price when they get near that $60,000 limit in Canada, that they will increase the price of the options and not the base price of the vehicle. So I hope they don't forget us Quebecers here in Canada, and for the rest of Canada as well, that they, don't increase for 2023 too much the base price, and for 2024 as well, that they more focus on increasing the price of the options. Now to finish up, because I am completely losing my voice and probably your patience because this voice is horrible. Maybe you find it's better than usual. I don't have the most pleasant voice anyways regularly, but I think it's great that this tax bill is proposing that this only works, this tax credit for buying an electric vehicle only works if your family has a net income of under $300,000 annually. Remember, these are tax dollars. These are dollars that come from everyone. I think that's really smart. In Canada, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you're getting a tax credit. Mind you, the vehicles have limits. And recently, before the limits got increased in Canada, what was frustrating is it only really encouraged buying an electric vehicle that I don't like. So the price limits were basically forcing me into a Bolt. And I'm sorry, but I just don't want a Bolt. I find the Mach E to be exciting. I find the Mach E GT to be incredible. And if you're in Canada and you're already not going to get your tax incentives, or maybe it's the same case in the States, but I feel, and here's my vote for it, in Canada there's a $10,000 difference between a Mach E Premium all-wheel drive and the Mach E GT. And for $10,000, it's not just roughly 200 pound-feet of torque and 1 second of acceleration. What's amazing is the whole front bumper. The air diffuser in the back, that is, you know, track, race car, track inspired. The sides of the vehicle, the mags, the seats, the steering wheel, it's everything. It's a whole different beast, and it's a beast that I love. Now, we're going to be talking about this more. If there's any interest in this, put it in the comment section. Vehicle comparisons, like once you're within, trim comparisons. I love doing trim comparisons, and I've got a tough one for me. The Bronco took me 6 months to figure out, 7 months to figure out what my build would be, and I still, you know, didn't listen to my emotional side that wanted more equipment. But I'm having this debate with myself, and maybe we'll do it in a live with the community. What's a better value? A Lightning Platinum or an XLT? I've got opinions there. So we'll leave that to next time. If you haven't already done so, please do hit that like button. Hit the share, get the word out. This was, you know, at least the first half of this video was extremely crucial and important to know. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. It helps feed a poodle and dress that poodle. It's Canada, you know, what can you do? Even big dogs need a coat. So take care, y'all. Until next time, I do wish you all more cars and more power. I do hope that happens for us very soon. And have a great weekend.